What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Chris, as always with me,
Liam.
And today we are diving back into Handmaid's Tale, Season 1, Episode 3. If you're just tuning in for the first time, this is kind of like a rewind. We together did an experiment with the final Season 6 of Handmaid's Tale. I went in blind, and Liam had watched everything. You guys really enjoyed it, and asked us to go back and do the show service, and do ourselves some service, and watch the entire thing, and you would come along for the ride with us. And that's exactly what we've been doing, and you guys have been chiming in the comments. It's been really awesome to get your insights, to get your views, your perspective on what's going on, and to really have you on this journey with us. So I really appreciate it. If you are brand new, welcome. If you're just tuning in again, welcome back. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. And if you like these videos, the best way to let us know that is to just hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed so you can keep on watching. Without further ado, we're going to dive in, and you can dive in the comments, and we'll chat with you there.
Yeah, this episode started off with the erosion of freedoms, which was pretty wild. I really like how she was talking about, she was essentially telling a little story and using the metaphor of like the boiling frog. And I've always very much enjoyed that because we can see that in pretty much everything we do. The boiling frog metaphor can be used for both good or bad. It's, as we know, everything's based on intention.
Yeah.
But they slaughtered Congress and they didn't wake up, she said. It's like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
And then we see her boss telling her on the whim, like, hey, look, ladies, you're fired. Nothing I can do. This is out of my hands. This is out of my hands. This is out of my hands. He just kept going down that road, and it was really disturbing. But I don't want to forget about that coffee scene too, because that was slightly before.
Yeah. No, you're jumping all over right now.
It's all fitting with the theme of that opening monologue, right?
Yeah.
But the coffee scene was like, oh, this guy is that bold. You got even the patrons of the coffee shop looking at him like, the fuck you doing?
Yeah. No, the monologue where she's talking about how we just did nothing. And we basically let this happen. You know, they killed Congress. They took these drastic steps, and then we just let it happen. I thought that was great to hear because it does set context for us. But what I thought was even better was the fact that we actually go back in flashbacks, like you're saying. And we start to see how that slowly erodes, starting with them jogging and stopping for a coffee. And like you said, the man just being so bold to be like, assumes I'm thinking that they're lesbians, and that he doesn't want to serve lesbians coffee. And so he gives them hate, just direct hate for it, and calls them sluts, I believe, or whores, something like that. And just without any regard to their humanity or even the scenario around him, just stands on his hateful ground. And that's how I perceived that. Did I misread it that he was assuming that they were together and that's why he didn't do it? Or did he just hate them because they were female?
I thought it was female.
Really?
That's what I thought.
Interesting. What am I reading too much into it? Because I thought maybe because they were so giggly and they came in together that he assumed that they are a couple. But either way,
the reason I say that I think it's just because they're women is they just had the card declined, right? Because they just took all the assets from women away. The moment he realizes that, because I'm sure he's got to realize at that point, because thinking back on it now, because of what you just brought up, I'm like, how many other women were actually in that coffee shop?
quite a few.
Was there?
Yeah, I didn't count, but it wasn't just men.
Okay. And I'm thinking that it's just obviously the men still got their money.
Yeah.
Women aren't allowed to own
Any property.
assets.
Yeah, no property.
Yep, nothing. No ownership of anything. They're less than citizens at this point.
They're starting to enforce that, yeah, which we're noticing that they're freezing their bank accounts. They're stopping them from working, which they had 10 minutes to leave the premises with no... I thought they were actually going to round them up right there and then. That's why I guess what will be the eyes later.
Yeah.
We're kind of just standing there waiting. I thought because it's maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but in this world, if you've worked before, that means that you've sinned against God. But as a woman, right? Like that's a direct sin against God. In this world, am I wrong?
I'm not sure if it's direct sin against God for that. I think it's you're not performing the duties that you should as a female.
And you can get killed for that.
If you disobey them, obviously they're making up their own freaking rules.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, because I was under the assumption that some of the women that were working, we're going to be like labeled, you know, heretics and witches, you know, whatever, like just not in God's like eye, and then ultimately be like executed.
Well, not to get into it too early, I'm just going to bring this one piece up and then we can touch on it later. But Emily, if you look at Emily, even with the worst sin she could have committed, they're like, oh, she's still fertile.
Right, which saved her life.
Yes. So by that logic, I don't think they would kill the other women just for work.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Until they've sorted them and figured out like who they could use.
Yes.
So fucked up that they are not going to execute people.
Yeah.
Well, unless they are rioting on the brim, they're going to shoot everybody. But we'll get there.
Oof. Yeah.
So the reason, and I just want to touch on this 1 second, because the reason I went with a couple when it comes to June and Moira in the coffee shop is because the verbiage she used to insult them. Like if they were just beneath him, property, insignificant, why go the length to call them whores? And like the verbiage he used.
You brought it up last episode.
Okay.
Like with the cookie, right? As June's walking out of the room, they called her slut whore or something like that as she's walking away.
Oh, okay. So I thought that was like more Handmaid specific than, because they're fertile. They're not wives. They're just, you know, they were whores before kind of thing.
Yeah.
In their mind, not that they actually were.
Couldn't that just apply to this as well?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm trying to piece these things together.
That's where my mind goes.
Yeah.
Let us know, as always, please.
So yeah, that's the beginning of it. And then obviously June has $4,000 locked away that has to go to Luke. Moira goes on her I hate all men thing. And Luke's basically like, you're right. What am I going to do? Just cut my dick off? Like at that point, he realizes he is not going to win anything, he says.
Yeah.
And he's very sympathetic to both of them. Obviously, he's not actually this big chauvinistic, like I hate, you know, women are less than me.
He's still teasing them.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what people do, period, right?
Yeah.
And then she's like, she's got to go to the train station, where he's like, you want me to walk here? He's like, I'm a big, tough man.
And I think that they have that, like, you know, still they're close friends. They have that like banter they can have with each other. And that I think that still exists because although the rights are being stripped away, it hasn't hit Gilead yet. Like we're not Gilead level yet, where they're all taken away, ripped away from everything.
Yeah. It's not quite to that point, but everything's leading up to it.
Oh yeah,
obviously.
it's coming, yeah.
It was so disgusting to me watching the scene of them open fire on the bridge.
Yeah.
And yeah, that just disturbed me. And with all the recent stuff in the news about sending military, I was just like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously always going to be real life parallels.
Yeah.
Even in a far stretched dystopian novel or series that doesn't have a base in reality where we can see today that we live in. Definitely could some decisions be slightly different, and we went there. That's why I think so many people find this world to be interesting, is that we're watching people go through these horrific and traumatizing events, just true pure evil. But in the back of our minds at the same time, we are very fortunate that that as a society, we made a couple different decisions and we live in a very peaceful place right now in America, right? So, even with everything going on.
Yes. Very well put. I hesitate in saying anything about that.
Yeah, we avoid all that.
Yeah, we're here for big on politics. Yes. But so the whole relationship with Serena in June.
Yeah.
And okay, before I get to that part, let's go to Rita and how she was treating June.
I was thrown off.
I'm sitting there smiling the whole time. Barb's next to me. I'm like, you're confused why she's being super nice.
So confused I was. So confused.
I was like, just wait for it.
I was like, since when did Martha used to not even give her the time of day? Like was actually a little angry at her most of the time.
Yeah, Rita was kind of snippy and nasty.
Well, Rita, the Martha, yeah.
Yeah.
I called her Martha, but her name is Rita. But yeah, like over the top nice.
And she's like, fuck, a rose?
What, she's like,
normally that'd be okay, but in Gilead.
Rose by any other name.
Ew, what the fuck?
Yeah, and then we quickly find out that she hasn't had her period yet. Made Serena believe that she's pregnant. I got one thing I want to touch on with the pregnancy thing. And then I have a question I want to pose to the audience a little bit later, but when it comes up, I'll share it. Why wouldn't June use Aunt Lydia beating her and electrocuting her as an excuse why maybe she's not pregnant? Right? So I get if she had her period, then she never was pregnant, and that's kind of a thing. But why couldn't she lie and say, I was going to give birth, but because of what Aunt Lydia did to me, I lost the baby. And instead, now it's Aunt Lydia's problem, not June's problem.
I think that's a hindsight 2020 kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. I was like, because when she hit her and dropped her to the floor, I'm like, oh shit. And Serena flipped out because she's pregnant. I'm like, oh shit. Like,
and Liv's like, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, I totally thought Serena, we were about to see pure evil. I thought we were finally going to see it. But no, and for me, I was like, oh, okay, this gets June out of it. But that's not the route she went. So I'm very curious. Why is it hindsight 2020 and she just didn't think of it? Is she too scared to lie? Like, what's the reasoning why she wouldn't use that to protect herself? Just really curious.
Well, since we're talking about that, we should talk about the whole eye situation. Nick is like, hey, look, just give in, do whatever, protect yourself, stay safe. And so she ends up being taken back to the house from Nick as she's trying to have all these conversations with him. What happened to Emily? What happened to Emily? Right? And he's like, yeah, don't worry. He finally breaks down. He's like, look, you're about to be tortured for information, essentially. Everyone breaks.
You're there, yeah.
Yeah. But later on in the episode, he's like, what was it? I should have just kept driving. We should have just ran away together.
Yeah. So here's my perspective so far. Walking into season 1, having seen season 6, I expected a whole lot of violence and evil from Fred and Serena. And I expected Nick to kind of be a sideline character until he's forced to have the baby with June, many seasons in. So I am surprised, which is always good, right? I don't like knowing everything. I like having surprises. I'm pleasantly surprised that Nick is actually way more like almost in love with her now from the beginning.
He's just flirting.
Yeah. And especially when he comes to bring her ice and he almost
gets sexual tension.
Yeah. Ooh, cut that with a knife. And Serena and Fred are almost, I can't say anything about Fred because all I've ever seen him do is play Scrabble at this point. So it's like very tainted glass I'm seeing him through. I haven't seen that evil yet, other than obviously the ceremony itself, which is pure evil. I'm not overlooking that. But Serena, I want to ask you, this is a question I want to ask you guys. This is what I want to pose real quick. Just go with me with a thought experiment, if you will. If you were me and you have only seen 3 episodes of season 1 and season 6, do you believe Serena to be evil or just a hurt person who is a bully? I'm really curious what your thoughts are. Now, I get it. We're going places. I want you to forget that for a minute. Based on what we are currently sitting at, 3 episodes into season 1, is Serena evil so far, or is she just a hurt person who is looking for any way to regain control? Because at the end of this episode, that's what I saw. I saw a high school bully who finally had an opportunity to seize control, exert some power, feel powerful again. And she did it. Because she had the option to beat her. She had the option to do so many different things. And she locked her in a room. It was just a sign of power. It was like, I've got power now. And that to me is a bully, not someone who's evil. So just really curious. And as we unfold the rest of the seasons, I'm very open to her evolving and becoming something else than what I see now. But I'm stuck there. And I want to see what you guys would think if you were in my shoes.
So I forgot how much of a slow burn it was for her to build up to this. But this is what you see as I agree with you. Based on the context that you have, I can see where you're coming from, that she does not appear evil right now. Right now was the first time you got to see at the end of the episode where she had her locked in the room. After she went on this, you're my savior, you're my gift, you're my best thing ever, you're my second chance.
Well, he also took that away from her with one sentence after that.
Well, yeah. Saying that she's not pregnant.
Right. Which everything she had just said was pinned on that being the thing. If she unpinned it, it all went away.
Which to me is, she's no longer that useful thing at the moment.
Yeah. Saw that.
To me, that can be kind of evil.
100%. Treating someone like a piece of property and not a human being is a very evil act. But I'm not going to... That's like splitting a hair there, so I'm not going to dive into it too much. So that is an evil act. But what I'm saying is that when she chooses to inflict violence, when she chooses to act out and lash out, I see a bully, not necessarily someone who has like evil intentions.
She's very good with mental abuse and getting her way. And in this episode was just the first time you get to see that facade break of I'm this perfect person.
Oh yeah, you definitely broke. Yeah.
Yeah, she just went full on to the dark side for a moment there, but she didn't get too carried away, if that makes sense. I'm not excusing anything that she's did there. I'm just saying that that's pretty much nothing compared to what may or may not happen in the future.
Yeah. Well, and when you look at it like comparatively, Emily's wife gets hung, Janine loses an eye. Like, there's some true evil, violent things happening, and then she gets locked in her room. So I was just like, comparatively...
Right now, yes, I see your point. So when I have to say, though, that is one of my... I just absolutely love that scene of the wife getting hung.
The way they did that through the back
camera,
window?
yes.
The angle was well done angle.
That part, I was like... watching it now again, I completely forgot about that scene. But watching it again, I'm seeing it and like seeing how it's lining up with the window as they're driving, as the doors close, and it was just so beautifully calculated in terms of framing, not the act itself, but the framing of the imagery.
For sure,
is what I want to say about that.
Yeah, because my heart sunk into my stomach in that scene. Just the way they shot it, I don't think if they had done it in any other way, would it have had that pivotal effect like you're talking about, where like I felt for her, I was like, damn, like they made her watch and then took her away to go do the rest. Like, wow.
They had this half-assed trial right before that.
It wasn't a trial. It was like, you sure? Okay, she's guilty. Like, that was it. There was no trial.
You swear to God?
Yeah.
Oh, good enough for me.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. And then instead of what I thought was interesting way to establish that this is Gilead and not America or anything that we know, is that to try them, so like the law they used to try them and convict them wasn't a law, it was a Bible verse. So it's like, whoa, we are no longer operating in something we understand. Like, this is very different. Yeah.
And the fact that they're silenced with the masks.
Yeah.
So obviously they can't even speak out for themselves.
Yeah,
they're not allowed. They're not even considered human beings or people, I guess, to them, unless they're serving a purpose.
Yeah. So the one girl was Martha 6 something, and then Handmaid. Like, they have numbers. They don't have names.
Yep. Very reminiscent of like Auschwitz or another type of camp.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's dehumanizing someone. And that's exactly what they did very well. But after... We're jumping all out of order. Apologize for that.
We need to always go directly in order as long as we talk about the whole episode.
Yeah. But once after the hanging, the trial and all that stuff, you see her in almost like a prison area, and we got the guard there. And
when they're holding her before trial?
Was that before or after?
That's right before she goes into trial.
Where she's attempting to seduce the guard?
To distract him so she can get out the exit kind of thing? Yeah. Yep. That's right before she goes in for trial.
Okay. Getting a little out of order then. But yeah, that whole scene, can you imagine how difficult and disgusted you'd have to be and scared for your life that as someone who's not attracted to the opposite gender would be willing to do that? I mean, that's fucking wild.
I mean, at that, I can't put myself there, but what I would say is if I had to choose between like death or trying something else, I mean, self-preservation would kick in at that point for most people. I don't care who's watched. Like, you could say you are as strong as anything, but when there's life and death, self-preservation kicks in. And Emily, that's exactly what's happening. That's self-preservation. She has no interest in that man at all, but she knows that she's an attractive woman and that he's still a man, and that she can try this and maybe it'll work.
It looked like it was going to work for a few seconds there.
I think he wanted it to, but then he realized where he was standing. He's literally standing outside the freaking courtroom.
And he's got to realize that, hey, look, I'm about to get my ass shot if this happens.
Yeah. One person walks by or walks out. It's not like they were locked in a room somewhere. Like, the dude was completely exposed. And then self-preservation kicked in for him, right? I'm sure as a dude, who's a soldier, he probably would have enjoyed the comfort of a woman. However, at the same time, self-preservation is going to kick in for him too.
That's kind of a big theme in this episode. Because we got her boss at the beginning, June's boss at the beginning. I've got no choice. Self-preservation.
Yeah.
all of this episode was all about self-preservation.
Well, I mean, they line it up perfectly if you think about it, because they open the episode talking about we had multiple chances to stand up for ourselves, actually do something to make a difference, and we chose not to. And now we've gotten to the point where our only choice is self-preservation.
That's day of 9/11 for me, because 9/11, I was in college at 17, and I told my professor about the towers getting hit, and the first thing he said to me is, no, that can't happen in America. It's got to be fake.
I guarantee you
that
was a pretty common thought.
That's why I'm thinking that that's got the same theme in this, is where their head was at. No, this is America. That could literally never happen here. So these little micro boiling things like they were talking about with the frog in the pot.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I think the frog analogy is the best, because 9/11 is slightly different, because in real time, we were very, I would say, doubtful that it would happen, that it did happen, maybe even a little in, what's the word I'm looking for? Denial that it happened for a while. But there was no denial or no refusing that it happened within several hours after it actually happened.
Yeah.
And then as a society, as a country, very quickly came together, and it was probably one of the most united we've been in a very long time, for a very short time, but we got united and figured some things out. The issue is that in this timeline that we're talking about in Gilead, once they realized that Congress actually got slaughtered and that they really were enacting these heinous removal of rights against women and this new church-based authority, we didn't do anything. And that's ultimately the big difference. It's like, what's the famous saying? All evil needs to prevail is for good men to do nothing. And that's what's happened. Like, good men did nothing. And now it's a world of self-preservation, as we see in Gilead.
Yes.
I think the last thing we got to touch on, and I would love to have some female input on this, Emily. So we find out that she gets not sentenced to death because she can still reproduce, but she gets sentenced to redemption. Which you were talking about, they have other ways of getting them back into conforming and compliant. And so in this case, I'm under the assumption that they removed her clitoris, because Aunt Lydia says, now you'll never want for it again. And that's like the pleasure center for the female. So is that what they did? Did they remove her clitoris so that she can no longer enjoy the act of sex or anything sexual? Or did they do something else? At first, I thought they harvested her eggs. I'm like, oh shit, they're going to make sure that she produces. Like, they harvested her eggs and now they're going to, throw her in the colony or whatever. But then when Aunt Lydia said to her, you'll never want for it again, we basically took away the desire for it. I was like, oh shit, they removed her clitoris. And so that's what they did. Because it was very up in the air. They never specifically say what happens. And then you get to watch her go through the range of emotions from denial to anger. She did a really good job with that.
I just got chills thinking about that scene again because of how she went straight to the rage at the end. I was just like, I felt that.
Yep.
I felt that anger. I know what that anger feels like.
Pure rage, yeah. So let us know down in the comments below, what do you know, or what do you believe it happens exactly to Emily? Because right now, that's my assumption, but
I think it's something they just couldn't say.
Yeah.
Or felt that it was maybe emotional enough that they didn't need to say it. They could just give it to you through innuendo.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what we, as the viewer, are perceiving from her going through that vary of emotion, is her coming to that realization herself. I'm just looking for confirmation that I'm not an idiot. That's all. Am I seeing that right? Is that really what's happening?
Don't believe you're an idiot, because that's the same conclusion I came to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Another Griffith, holy crap episode. I think that this one, right now, you mentioned, it's kind of like a slow burn, but because I'm so looking for the missing pieces of the puzzle and to fill in the gaps, every little bit of it is important to me. So I'm really enjoying getting these glimpses into the past and how Gilead's built up and how this first began with June and all the relationships. And really, again, surprised by Nick.
We're only 3 episodes in.
So let's take this ride and keep on going. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button. If you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and do so. Really appreciate you guys commenting below. We'll engage with you down there. We're dropping multiple Handmaid videos a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you really like this stuff, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're checking out the playlist, make sure you're tuning in. And we're also dropping Murderbot, Predator, Killer of Killers, some other stuff here and there as we go. Really just enjoying the ride and really enjoying you guys here with us. So without further ado, if you guys really enjoyed it, we'll see you on one of these next videos. Other than that, we're out.
Find the strength hiding in each battle scar. You're not who you were, you've already come far.